So hi guys. Well, I recognise so many Algorand Club faces and also a lot of people from our kind of wider community. We've got 36 participants at the moment, so I'm aware that everyone is always late. So we'll probably start a few minutes after the half past hour, uh, and go from there. So guys, the way this will work, for those of you who haven't done our AMAs before, I will do 15 minutes of questions with Sean or so, and then we'll hand over to you guys to ask questions. Anything you kind of want within reason. If I think it is not perhaps within reason, I will veto definitely. But I know you guys are all very well behaved and will ask great things. If you are a little bit shy or video audio is suspect, please feel free to use the chat to ask questions. Make sure it is to everyone. I think you might be only able to do to everyone. But put it in there so that we can kind of see a question. And I will kind of, if we have lots, I'll pick the best ones, but we'll try and get through as many as possible and be done kind of inside the hour. So again, we'll let people drip in. We're up to almost 50 people right now. Rule of thumb, guys, if you can keep your camera on, that would be great, just so that we can see smiling faces. Zoom is always a better place when you can see faces. Certainly I've noticed from events that you get zero feedback sometimes because everyone's muted. So smiling faces and laughter and whatever it may be, it always helps a little bit. I see lots of different people: Elise, Ted, Phil, Jordan, Daniel, Oscar, Patrick, Akshay, all from the Algorand Club, CM as well. I think I'm right in saying we have probably most continents covered with these type of events, from everywhere from Europe to the US, South America, a bit of Africa. Obviously, Phil, you are representing Australia, though we do have a few Australian unis who do sometimes get involved with these events. So we're up to 64 participants. My theory that everyone is late is not quite right. People are broadly on time. So yeah, let's give it a few minutes. So I see that there's a couple of people who don't have their videos on, likes of James, Christian. At least I know you guys from Algorand Club, so I can very much call you out. So get your videos on. Please mute yourself, unless you ask questions. So that for asking questions, there should be a raise your hand type thing, maybe somewhere. Is there a raised hand thing? Should be.
Yeah, there should be a little raise hand thing. Yeah.
Yeah, there should be somewhere. If you have a question, raise your hand or just use one of the reactions, I don't know, some reaction. I'll figure it out, and we'll get kind of questions or just kind of pop them with audio. As I say, guys, first 15 minutes will be questions from me, and then we'll kind of open it up to the floor. So we'll give it about 30 seconds or so, guys. It is about 12 p.m. in London. It's extremely rainy. I don't know how it is with all of you guys. There's probably a diversity of climates. Sean was telling me that they almost had a typhoon yesterday, which sounds much worse than it probably was in London.
Wasn't too bad. Just a little bit of rain here and there. Not too bad.
Yeah, good. Maybe similar to London then. Awesome.
I miss London. I used to go to London almost once every month.
Really?
For quite a few years, yeah. And all of a sudden, you can't go anywhere. It feels really strange.
What was your favorite bit of London?
Well, definitely not my office. I can tell you that. But I think I really like walking around the river. You know, just especially at night. You know, just chilling, listening to some music, jogging along, and things like that. That for me is always good. Of course, Friday afternoon, going to the pub, you know, enjoying a few pints. That's always enjoyable. So
yeah,
definitely miss that.
Me too. The runs are still good. It's a good. The river is a perfect running route. Awesome. Right, I think we should get going. I don't know how many. I just made my window smaller to get my questions, but 76 people. Very nice. Guys, I think we should kickstart the event. So first and foremost, welcome Sean, who is CEO of the Algorand Foundation, to the Encode Club community. Sean, thank you so much for joining us first and foremost. Sean has led an experience and eclectic background. He wasn't always in blockchain. I would say he's had a kind of traditional corporate career to begin with, working both at Dell and EMC for a number of years. And originally, I think you, as far as I can work out, were at the University of Waterloo, did a bit of computer science, did a bit of maths. So clearly a very technical guy, which obviously helps in the world of blockchain. And now, as of 20 earlier this year, June 2020, he took over as CEO of the Algorand Foundation, which you guys, especially those who are in our Algorand Encode club kind of accelerator, are very familiar with. But he is CEO over there and is based in Hong Kong. And we're going to ask him hopefully lots of questions about his career and his background and thoughts on the space. But welcome, Sean. First and foremost, I'd love to give you a round of applause here, but this is not quite something we can do on Zoom. But maybe we can start with one simple question. So, what I always ask this to all of our speakers: what did young Sean want to do when he was at Waterloo, when he was thinking about all of his options? What did he see himself doing 20 years later, 30 years later, and how is that kind of? Have you followed that plan kind of perfectly? Have there been deviations? Yeah.
No, I mean, the world is a fast-changing place. Of course, we know that now better than any other time, probably in the last few decades. When back when I was still at Waterloo, studying computer science, and as you mentioned, doing a little bit of math, I wasn't really thinking of anything specific, right? I thought I really wanted to be in the technology space. I was fascinated with financial services, so I've always envisioned some sort of intersection between kind of the finance world and the technology world as far as where I would be going. And in that regard, I think from my career perspective, it has been fairly consistent. Whether I was in a consulting role or software engineering role, or later on in sales management role, I was always working for technology companies, but working very closely with financial services customers, whether they're banking and insurance companies and whatnot. So I think from in that regard, from that perspective, it's more or less mapped out. But definitely, I think over my career, things have changed. I've gone through multiple rounds of you could call them technology innovation. Starting with the internet, e-commerce, cloud computing, and then now, of course, distributed ledger technologies, AI, and so on and so forth. So I've gone through a few waves, and I think every wave led me to look at things slightly differently, but then also look at the world as it evolves differently as well. And certainly, in time, we can probably cover some of those in more specific detail. But I think, it's been a very interesting journey so far, and certainly enjoying my time right now at the Algorand Foundation.
Absolutely. And obviously, Waterloo is quite an exceptional university, particularly in its kind of blockchain. I've noticed a lot of kind of blockchain activity coming out of Waterloo. I know that kind of ETH Global, a series of hackathons kind of started in Waterloo. ETH Waterloo is kind of a big event, a number of projects that have come out of there. What did Waterloo kind of show any signs of cryptography life back then? Was there did you get a feeling there was going to be this explosion of kind of obviously it was a little bit too early for blockchain, but did you get kind of this feeling that there was something there?
So I'm going to sound a bit aged when I say that I think cryptography obviously has been around for quite some time. But the notion of blockchain obviously hasn't been there, especially during the early days. Back at Waterloo, actually, I still remember working on kind of the earlier versions of the internet, so to speak, right, or darknet. That's what we used to call it back then. I remember doing a bunch of projects very early on just building web pages, and look, I mean, web pages now and mobile applications and whatnot are extremely user-friendly and much closer to all of us as we interact with them. Back in those days, if you can believe it, one of the earliest browser that I used was actually text-based. Text. So it's on a green, black-green color screen, and you literally have to enter command to go to different places. There was no graphic interface. So way back when, I think a lot of the focus, especially during the time I was at Waterloo, was really more around connectivity. It was around data exchange, and it was in the beginning of kind of representing this distributed computing environment to a broader audience than beyond just the academic world at the time, and also a few select community. Of course, that very quickly evolved into later on a number of World Wide Web applications, e-commerce, and then and of course the last 20 years everybody knows what has happened. So it wasn't so much blockchain per se. I definitely had no idea what blockchain was if you were to ask me then. So this is certainly something that is new. But in regards to Waterloo, though, they are one of our university partners. They actually help us with some of our network operations aspects, and we're continuing to identify additional capabilities and collaboration with Waterloo, but as well as other universities, Berkeley, MIT, and so on and so forth. And I know we're actually in the planning of further building out our university program, and especially in the research aspect. I think in the coming months, those of you that are following Algorand will be seeing some announcement in those areas.
Awesome. Well, I know your head of cryptography, Sergi, is Waterloo based, and I know Waterloo are an outstanding blockchain society, and they've definitely done well in our hackathons before. So still doing extremely well. So I wanted one quick thing, point of order, guys. All nice two of you. Well done, all of you, for attending. I'm going to ask some questions to start off with to get the conversation going. Then we'll hand over to you guys to ask questions. So hopefully nice video on questions, but you can use chat if you want, just for those who entered late, to tell you how the structure is going to work. So Sean, back to you. So you had a kind of fantastic corporate career, but I noticed that you did a home decor online startup in 2004 for 4 years, which is a deviation from kind of path you seem to follow. What was that like? What was your thinking there, and how did you enjoy that experience?
That was a part-time venture, I would say. So that was not a full-time. Basically, that meant as soon as I get home at night and over the weekend, my time were entirely consumed in that venture. I had a partner, so the two of us were literally working on that, just on a part-time basis. It was a fantastic experience because, when you have to build something from ground up, and you have to go into this kind of entrepreneurial mindset, then it's obviously quite different than working in the corporate, right? Corporate has a lot more structure. You understand what are being asked of you and what you need to deliver. So from that perspective, structure obviously helps you progress very quickly in terms of the deliverables and whatnot. But when you're an entrepreneur, or when you're just doing a business, right? You're a business owner, very often there's no guidelines, there's no blueprints. You almost literally have to think about everything on your own. And of course, at the time, what my partner and I were thinking was that I was living in New York at the time, and New York obviously being a fairly fashionable city, lots of international touches. We thought about potentially creating something in the e-commerce space. And again, this is back in 2004. So that was kind of at the time, a lot of digital businesses were running on. And we thought about our entry into that, and what can we do? What type of products can we store? Where should we be sourcing them from? How do we build a shopping cart? How do we build a web experience? How do we look for distribution channels and all of that stuff? And being a techie myself, and my partner also is a techie, we ended up literally building everything on our own. So we built a shopping cart, we built a catalog, we built the comparison engines, we built an algorithm way back when, which was very, very, very unique, that can feed directly into Google Ads, Google AdWords, so that we can actually identify and find some real-time data in regards to how the ranking can be adjusted. So that was really a very, very interesting experience. I wouldn't say it was extremely profitable. I think at that time, what we were really aiming at doing was learning and trying to understand the business of kind of fundraising, and also running a P&L, and also understanding and making sure we serve our customers properly, and of course to have repeat customers to come back to our site. So I think look, it's one of those experiences that was unforgettable. It was a lot of fun. My partner and I continue to be very good friends, so we did not argue. So that part is also quite important when you find partners. I will say though, timing is also quite interesting. You will probably have noticed that in 2008, around mid 2008, we decided to sell the business. Our reason at the time was actually because my full-time job at the time started to require a lot of international travel. So I really didn't have the time to handle the business on a part-time basis. My partner was also got promoted, so he was becoming extremely busy as well. So we decided, with the volume that we're able to generate with the business, it would be interesting if we were able to find buyers. So we went and we found a number of buyers. We negotiated, and we ended up selling the business. Now, I wanted to tell you that because what happened in 2008, around the September-October timeframe, it was the financial crisis. So if we were to delay the sale of our business literally by 3 or 4 months, we would have been stuck. And first of all, we wouldn't have any business to run. And also there wouldn't have been a buyer. So no exit for us. So sometimes timing is interesting. It was obviously, we had no idea what was going to happen to the world at that time, but timing worked out. But overall, it was a great experience running the business, learning about it, but then obviously having a reasonable exit, at least as far as we're concerned, was favorable. So yeah, it was a good experience overall, for sure.
Awesome. And you said you started off doing it kind of part-time. This is often a choice that most kind of would-be founders, I know people in the Algorand club kind of have. This is kind of a, do they go full-time? Do they kind of do part-time? What would you suggest in hindsight for someone now? Is it better to do it alongside of a job or kind of dive straight in?
Look, I think it depends on personality. And that also depends on your aspirational goal. If your goal was similar to what I was doing, which was really to learn and trying to understand the process, but at that time, I didn't think about it purely from I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to go down this path. That was not my mentality. So that's why we decided a part-time basis was good enough for us to tackle. Now, it grew into something different, but that was my mentality. Now, of course, if your aspiration is you've built something and you've built it on Algorand, it's a kick-ass idea, and you think it's going to have some tremendous effect in community, in society, and whatever aspirational goals you have, then you should go for it, right? Especially when you're younger and have less obligations, quote unquote, that you have to think about. Go for it. It is absolutely and always going to be an unforgettable experience, whether you succeed or fail. I think in this world of technology and innovation, failure just leads you to the next innovation and the next motivation as well. So I think from that regard, it really depends on your mentality, whether you want to really just learn and try things, or you really want to go for it, and decide that on your own.
Absolutely. And kind of fast forwarding quite a lot, moving to kind of Algorand this year was a kind of a move into blockchain, which you kind of hadn't necessarily done formally before. What made you take that leap, and how long had you been following the blockchain space?
A couple of years. So as you mentioned, my career has predominantly been on the commercial side. And of course, as I mentioned earlier as well, I spend a lot of time working with financial services clients. And if you think about the intersection between kind of financial transaction, distributed ledger technology, and blockchain, and then bridging that into the crypto side as well, there's a lot of synergy, but also gray area in between all of those. So I think the last few years, before I jump into the blockchain directly, I was involved in a number of enterprise blockchain projects within these banking institutions. I was also advising a few startups here in Hong Kong that are in the blockchain space as well, both on the public side and also private chains projects. So I got my interaction really with blockchain technology for a couple of years, and I became very fascinated with it. Right, the potential of what it can bring, and also some of the inefficiencies that conventional system of today and how blockchain technologies and all the innovations around it can potentially bring a lot more efficiencies and also innovation on top of it. I just thought it was something that I definitely want to get more into. Now, I certainly wasn't seeking out specifically the Algorand Foundation. That was obviously an opportunity that presented itself. I went with it, and thankfully I was able to come on board, and now obviously leading the foundation from our community building and engagement perspective. So it's been a wonderful journey. We have lots of exciting projects going on. I see on the chat some of you obviously have been following some of our latest partnership news, so I can certainly cover that later on. But it's been fantastic, and I cannot ask for a better team and also a better project to be working on.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask one more question, then we'll hand over to the guys to start asking their questions kind of out loud. But where do you see Algorand in kind of, this sounds extremely cliche saying it in my head, but in the next few years, where do you see Algorand kind of being? Obviously, do you see it as a competition against Ethereum? Do you see it as a kind of something where everyone's going to take a different piece of the market? Where will Algorand be?
That's a great question. Where would we be? We obviously, part of what most chains would all be aiming for is to become one of the more transaction-centric chains, right? Because unless you have real transactions that are facilitating economic activity on the chain, then it's just a chain. When it's being actually used for real world applications and transactions that are being facilitated that drive real economic value, then that becomes something that will have some sustainability and also some wide adoption potential as well. That's where we see us going. Over the last year and a half, we've had a number of very exciting projects building on Algorand. I know one of the questions here talks about CBDC, so we were obviously one of the first to launch a digital currency-like environments with the Marshall Islands. That project is ongoing, but honestly, we have a number of these CBDC projects that are in discussion across the world. So that is certainly an area that we're paying very close attention to. But at the same time, you think about projects similar to Props, which is a community-driven environment where they leverage the Props token as a way to incentivize participants to contribute and consume services from the network. That is the type of more decentralized environments that we see a lot of opportunities going towards. So we're very actively looking for partners and looking for projects to build on Algorand, especially leveraging the fact that we have tremendous scalability capability. And at the same time, our transaction cost model, it's incomparable to most of the projects out there, right? And I think there's also the reason why we see recently a lot of Ethereum projects moving over onto Algorand, especially the more mature ones that are starting to hit a certain volume. We're starting to see quite a bit of that. So I think Anthony, to go back to your question, in a few years, we're going to see quite a few of these larger projects running on Algorand. We want to have more coverage, exciting projects from all around the world, rather than concentrating in a few regions. And at the same time, we want to see more community-driven contribution into this open source project as well. So the more that we can do, and obviously from the foundation perspective, since we're more grassroots driven, the more we can help drive that ecosystem support and also that growth into the community through projects, the more we want to be participating and supporting all of you to be building more exciting projects on there.
Awesome. Okay, I want to hand over to some questions from the guys. Probably let's start with the guys from the kind of Algorand Encode Club, or the Encode Algorand Club. So who has a question they want to ask? See if we can do this in a non-awkward way. Dan, are you kind of raising your hand? Yes. Go on, Dan. Go for it.
Yeah, I just wondered if you had a single lesson that's really stuck with you, that's become like a touchstone or a mantra to repeat to yourself.
From a career perspective.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, there are many I can share with you. Let me think about one that was quite impactful. I would say when you hit an obstacle, whether the obstacle is gradual or sudden, you have to prepare yourself with the mentality that you realize that is an obstacle, and you put your mind that you're absolutely going to cross it, rather than thinking, can I do it? Should I do it? You know, should I call a friend? You know, put your mind that you're going to cross it. I'll give you one example, and it might sound very silly, but in the earlier days when I was in New York, so this is in the early 2000s, I was working for a company, and we created this content management solution. And I remember it was probably my second project and my first project working for this company. I obviously didn't want to screw up. And I was on the sales team. So there was one Friday afternoon, we went to a company called Bloomberg. Any of you heard of Bloomberg before? Yeah. So financial system. And you know, we were supposed to present to the Bloomberg team in regards to how our product can fit into, you know, what they're looking for and so on and so forth. Of course, in the middle of the presentation, Mr. Bloomberg walked in. I was not expecting that. I was, I don't know, 23, 24. Of course, I knew who he was. And I froze. And then he started asking some questions. And since I was standing by the presentation, you know, and I was answering the question, he directed the questions at me. And I froze. You know, crossing in my mind was, I better say something. I better say something correctly. I better not screw up, otherwise I'll get fired. Like, that's literally what was going in my mind. The reason I'm telling you that is, in life, situations like that happens a lot. You know, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your own startup, whether you are dating someone and something happens, things can happen. So to prepare yourself, that mentality when something sudden that happens, and you need to prepare your mind to understand how to deal with it in a not so embarrassing manner, will take you far. Because life will always hit you with those situations, and the more you hit them earlier on, actually, the better it will be as you continue to go on. And you know, these type of things, these hurdles, these obstacles, these moments, they're only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes there are going to be decisions that you just have to make, and you have no choice, but you have to decide. So you just have to you have to deal with it. So prepare for that mentally. Have a thick face. You know, sometimes it sounds silly, but have a thick face. But use your mind. Think about how you want to interact with it, and just go. Don't stop. Don't freeze. If you do, they think you have no idea, and then you'll get passed on pretty quickly.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Dan, you can do this retrospectively. But do you want to give a one line on your background and an isomorph? And everyone, when you're doing your questions, please do this, because I think it's quite useful context.
Sure. So I'm Daniel Hales. I'm currently working as part of the Algorand Boost Club on a project called Isomorph, which is about transferring assets from other platforms like Ethereum into Algorand and back. That's the concept. And for my background, I'm Imperial undergraduate who's now working full-time at a company called Netcraft.
Did you say Imperial College?
Yes, that's me.
My father went to Imperial College way back when.
Oh, great. I love the uni, so.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
Thank you for your question.
Who wants to ask a question next? Let's see if we can do this in the least awkward way possible. Otherwise, I will go to the written questions. Go on, Phil.
Maybe I'll touch on the DSM one for a bit.
Go for it.
I can certainly talk about the accelerator program. That one is quick. I think that came from TED. Yeah, we literally just launched our European accelerator program with Eternal Capital. So our accelerator program is essentially a multi-week program where we work with startups that already have a concept, have an MVP, and they wanted to go through and actually building the product, and thereby getting access to a number of community members and network contacts that we can bring collectively with our partners. So not only do you have an opportunity to engage with the Algorand technical team, get a better understanding on what building on Algorand is like, but more importantly, you get to meet a number of VCs that we're in very close partner with. You get to meet a number of mentors in all different areas. And it's really meant to be more of a well-rounded environment so that projects can come in and not only just look at the technical aspect or the financial aspect or whatnot, but really get that advisory type of environments that you can enjoy. So we are just kicking that program off. We actually just wrapped up our Asia Accelerator program that was launched back in June. So our finalists are going through the 12-week program now with the partners and the mentors as well. And we're going to be doing the same thing with the European Accelerator in the coming months. So that one is quick. In terms of BSN, Akshay, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes. Hi, Sean. So it's me
who
was asking the question. Yes. So
okay, great.
Is
yes. there a particular reason why you're asking about BSN? I wanted to understand that so I can respond appropriately.
Okay, so I think so they are building a network of networks. So bringing in all the transactions from China. So how does this thing playing in the more broader ecosystem of bringing globalization to this thing? Like whatever thing is happening in the China world, how is BSN connecting with Algorand and other networks, bringing those kind of use cases to a broader system? So that's what I'm trying to understand with this.
Okay, so at the highest level, there's a lot about BSN. So I'm only going to cover the high level at this moment. So BSN really has the international network that lives outside of China, and then they have the mainland China version inside of China. The main difference between the two is that projects that are part of the BSN network or the blockchain services network, if you're in the international network, then you are the public chain. So these are public chain projects like Algorand, like Ethereum, that are joining and have been selected as part of the initial cohort of chains that are part of this network. That's in the international side. And the goal for the international network are really twofold. One is it gives developer a very low cost, multi-chain environments that they can just log in, go through a portal with very reasonable rates in terms of utilizing the technology, and then be able to try things, right? So this is literally an environment where developer can say, I want to try building something on Algorand. I don't want to set up the node. I want to just go here, try it out, build it out, and then if I need to expand, I can figure that out from that point on. So that's really the genesis and the mission for the international nodes. The China nodes are different. Obviously, as we all know, the internet looks a little bit different in China. So this BSN looks a little bit different in China as well. And one of the main reasons for that is China is a country that does not allow for crypto assets. So if you think about most of the chains, the transaction cost is usually done through the crypto native asset. In the Algorand use case, it's the algo, right? In China, there's no crypto asset. So there's some adjustment that needs to be done to the public blockchains that have been selected to participate in the mainland China version of BSN. And one of that has to do with how the transaction fees are computed. But also in China, it's going to be a permission version. So the consensus mechanism is also going to be quite different in terms of how the public chains are run as well. Now, if you were to ask me, what is the longer term view? Where are they going with it? And all of that stuff. All of these are getting played out at this moment. The teams and the organizations behind creating BSN have been working on it for a few years. But it got them to this point where the infrastructure layer and the framework and the architecture is more or less there. What happens on top of it from a financial, from a commercial, from an ecosystem perspective, that will take time to get built out. So how that corresponds into the international side, how that corresponds into In China, for example, with the Belt and Roads initiative that they have been touting for the last 5 to 10 years, how does that intersect? That's probably for a much longer conversation. Certainly happy to have that with some of you if you're interested at some point. But I think it's one of those projects that has a lot of potential, but it's also very good testing grounds for countries, for institutions, and for developers to test out, just to see how this thing can be more widely adapted beyond just on an individual chain perspective or individual country perspective. I hope that helps.
Yes, amazing. Thanks for giving the insight. And the other one was regarding the CBDC. So the CBDC space is growing, and we see PBOC, China coming up with their own PBOC version. I think so. Algorand is working with Marshall Island, but moreover, in generally, different central banks have their own approaches, maybe a closed loop, open loop, or different approaches. So how does Algorand working with these clients, and how do you see different use cases or different models coming in terms of CBDC space?
Another good question. Obviously, CBDCs are a very hot topic these days, and I love it, right? Because this is a sign of this technology and this sector maturing, right? Normally, if it's not, it's hiding in the corner. There's some people kind of doing some crazy things, but when you see governments putting efforts into it, it's maturing. It's here to stay. Now, of course, it's not going to look entirely the same as what the community would be driving, especially in a fairly decentralized manner. CBDCs, rightfully called central bank, they're fairly centralized. So how these initiatives are forming in different parts of the world are going to have a lot of different variations and implications on how the world will be shaping up in the next 5-10 years, right? Because this thing is happening fast. So when you look at countries like China that have been working on it for quite some time, but if you think about China have been planning it for some time. China didn't just say, I'm going to go do a digital currency and I'm going to spend the next 2 years building it. They spent the previous 10 years trying to change the mentality of this country and the consumers in this country, where they're all mobile driven, right? Everything's wallet driven. Like even if you go to the wet markets and you're trying to buy, vegetable, I don't mean supermarkets. When you go into a, traditional markets, farmers market, right, per se, like people expect you to just scan their QR code and transfer funds from your wallet to theirs. Now, it's not digital money, but as far as the consumer is concerned, it's pretty much digital anyways, it's mobile. So they spend a lot of time letting companies like Alipay, WeChat, and really, change the mentality and the behavior of society in terms of how they interact with mobile payments. And once that is done, then they can now layer on top this digital currency notion, and then all of the corresponding regulatory implications to that as well, right? So that's the next phase. So I would say, if you're really looking at CBDC, every country is looking at it slightly differently. Some of them are proactively looking at it. Some of them are reactively looking at it. Some of them are ignoring it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Like I mentioned, Algorand as a project, we are in over a dozen conversations with a number of CBDC projects. Now, how far and how ready are they to go? They vary. But just from the amount of activity and the momentum that it's generating in the markets, I think you're going to only see more and more of these proposals that are coming from the central banks. I think there's going to be a lot of very interesting innovation that will come out of it. And everybody's implementation is going to be slightly different.
Awesome. So these are the questions for me and about me. So I'm Akshay. I'm building on Algorand, our decentralized marketplace. And I'm basically living in Oxford, UK, and working full-time in Visa, the payments company.
Great to meet you. Thank you for your questions.
Awesome. Who's got the next question? Go on, Phil. Sorry, you got intercepted before. Go for it.
Yeah, hi, Phil Talbot. The main question I have is, what do you see is the biggest challenge that the Algorand community, I guess, is facing to see blockchain go from being quite a tech-centric closed system to where we can see everyday consumers around the world, you know, actually using this technology in mainstream. And so really, there's a big chasm right now between, you know, where we are today, and I guess that's a bit like pre-Windows when we had DOS. You know, there's something in the, I guess, the evolution that we're seeing. There's something that we've got to overcome, and I'm just curious to see, Sean, if you had any insights or thoughts on, you know, what's that big obstacle, what's that challenge that we need to overcome to make this mainstream?
Thank you for your question, Phil. I love the analogy of Windows and DOS. It's been a while since I looked at DOS, but certainly I think you know, that if any of you have seen the kind of Crossing the Chasm, the book, right? That talks about kind of maturity, adoption, and these critical, you can call them hurdles, you can call them chasms, but these critical time where once you pass it, then it becomes mainstream. Is blockchain there yet? My personal opinion is not. It is not there yet. Is it approaching that chasm? I think it is, but you know, I'm not a mind reader, and I can't predict the future. But I do think, I feel like from a number of the activities that are happening around the world, I do feel like it's getting there. Now, to answer your question more specifically, I think that, you know, if we continue to look at blockchain projects, crypto projects as crypto projects, then it's always going to have this sense to it that it is kind of this alternate world. It's that, you know, these assets that were created and it's not backed by anyone. So if I send some money to someone and it gets lost, what happens? Who do I call? Like that notion, that society kind of, you know, familiarity of how financial systems work today that are ingrained in our head, that will take time to change. I talked about kind of what China have done, right? So they can prepare for the digital currency. They took 10 years, allowing mobile payments to be something that is now in everybody's mind, even the beggars on the streets. And the funny thing is, the beggars don't have cups and bowls in front of them anymore. They have a sign with a QR code. You want to give them $5, you scan their QR code, you give it to them. That is mentality change. And when that happens, then adoption of technology, especially efficient and low-cost technologies that blockchain projects are in general looking to bring, it will become mainstream very quickly. Now, I do think, though, one of the earlier way of adopting that is obviously in terms of payments, right? So we're starting to see now various different projects that, you know, are creating debit cards, credit cards that work directly within your crypto account, right? And of course, when I talk about crypto, it isn't just Bitcoin and ETH or Algo and whatnot, right? Increasingly more so, some of these crypto are actually stablecoin. So now, you know, from a consumer perspective, you get a sense that a dollar is a dollar. It's somehow pegged to the US dollar or the euro or whatnot. So you have a lot more comfort level in terms of using that as part of a credit card or debit card mechanism that we're all familiar with, and then use that to pay for a cup of coffee, right? Because that coffee wouldn't be fluctuating in price, you know, and versus what you're using in crypto in nature. So I think when more and more projects like that are more consumer friendly, consumer usable, and merchants accepted, then the more acceptance you're going to see. Now, does that mean people are going to rapidly go into the blockchain space and start buying cryptos left, right, and center? I can see it. I think the first and foremost, there's going to be a lot of regulatory hurdles that all projects will have to face. And these CBDC projects that actually you were talking about earlier, you know, obviously that's going to play a very big role in protecting the consumer, protecting the investors, but then also allowing innovation like this to continue to foster. So this is going to go back and forth a bit, but the more consumer-centric application, especially in the payment space that you see, I think the faster this adoption is going to happen. That's my personal view. Obviously, you know, there are probably other opinions that go into the whole DeFi world and so on and so forth. But I think from a consumer-centric perspective, you want wide adoption. The consumer has to adopt it, and the consumer will only adopt it if they see the predictability and the backing of some sort, whether it's a bank or government or something, right? The backing of something. And then also from a usability perspective, it's got to be easy to use, right? They don't really have to think about it. And when that happens, then I think the adoption is going to happen very quick.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, just to wrap up, our working for Authentium is a project. It's a part-time gig. I'm working full-time, and I'm based in Melbourne, Australia.
Ah, very good, very good, very good. In my same time, in my time zone. Excellent.
Yeah, yes, definitely. I'm the one that gets up at 4:30 in the morning to be with these guys.
Yes, yeah, Anthony was telling me that.
Anyway, well, thanks again, Sean. Appreciate your answer.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Who's going to ask the next question? This never stops being insanely awkward. If you want to ask a question, please kind of wave in some way. Wait, Ted, do you want to ask the next question? Are you there?
Yes, I do have a question.
Cast it. Well done, Ted. Go for it.
So I'm Ted. I'm an electrical and software engineer located in France. And I've recently quitted my job at Bosch. I was working at Bosch to go full-time in Algorand development. And what I'm building is an IoT infrastructure to easily build IoT devices on Algorand.
Very good.
And I remember that, you know, when I was working in Bosch, there were like some customers who wanted to integrate blockchain technology into their products. But the thing is that, you know, my sentiment was that they only wanted to do that to not be left out. Because blockchain is like, you know, this fancy word that everybody is talking about. But I felt that, you know, they did not really knew what they were talking about, you know. They just wanted to add blockchain because, you know, this is the huge things like you know, AI back in the days. So my question was like, all right, we have this technology blockchain, but not every project actually needs blockchain to evolve. And my question was that, you know, when do you think that, you know, we'll have the maturity to really know about blockchain? I mean, like, you know, the industries, and to really understand, you know, if it is needed or not.
That's it's Ted, right?
Yeah.
That's a excellent question. Excellent question. All of your questions are fantastic, but this one touches my heart. Primarily because one, I have dealt with Bosch before as a client. I did a bunch of work. I mentioned I do most of my work in financial services, but one of the companies that I was with earlier, we did a bunch of IoT, automated, you know, connected car type of initiative as well. So not specific to Bosch, the company, but I think in general, a lot of these earlier blockchain projects, quite frankly, a database will probably do, because you're just looking for it to store data. And you know what? If you want data access and data storage to be optimized, database technology has been around a long time. Caching technology has been around a long time. So there are more optimal solutions that you could do that. Now, of course, those are happening in more of a centralized environment. So, you know, blockchain being more decentralized obviously carries with it its own benefits and also some of the advantages as well. But I do know that a number of these earlier projects, especially from institutions, yeah, to your point, they were, it was almost like, hey, there's something new, we got to go try it out, right? We got to go try it out. I saw it 10 years ago when cloud computing started becoming pretty hot, and a lot of startups are already using it, of course. And then especially the banks are now saying, oh, now we got to go into cloud computing. But then they kind of look at cloud computing as something very, very different than what you and I know as cloud computing, right? At least today. So went through that cycle. So I think blockchain is going to be in a very similar manner. Now, what I would say though is if you use blockchain purely as a data infrastructure, then there are many options that you could use. Like I said, right? There are many technologies out there, more established, more mature, that you could just use, right? Download a MongoDB database, get an instance from Google Cloud, and off you go, right? So I think what I would say is that blockchain shouldn't be just looked at as a technology. It should be looked at as a part of an infrastructure that allows you to innovate on the business model. I think that's the critical part, right? Whether it's crypto or not doesn't matter, right? But it allows you to fundamentally do things differently. So if you try to shove blockchain into the standard kind of data projects that people have been doing for 30 years, it could do it, of course. Is it the best way to doing it? Absolutely no. But instead of trying to go this way, take business models, take business problems that probably need some level of refreshing, or better yet, re-innovation. Take the model and try to build it on blockchain rather than go the other way, right? In my previous career, I've seen a lot of that, right? Technology, companies just trying new technologies, but what they do is they try to fit it into what they do today. Now, of course, I understand, right? If you're an established organization, you have lots of existing processes that you cannot move away from, right? That's normal. But trying to take fundamentally different technology like blockchain and crypto and all of these things that are being innovated on it and try to shove it into an existing process, it is time wasted, and it's proven time and time again. It's not going to be that effective. So I think what I am seeing now is a lot of people that are in the industry, banking, supply chain, trade finance, what they are doing is actually trying to say, okay, well, rather than take an application and try to port it over, they actually take the business idea, they take the business model, and they innovate on that business model. And then they build on top natively on blockchain. And whatever chain it is, it doesn't matter, right? Every chain has got, its advantages here and there. Ours obviously is low cost, fast finality, scalability, and so on and so forth. So if you've got use cases that require those type of characteristics, Algorand is obviously fantastic for that. But rather than trying to fit Algorand into something, I see more success going the other way. And I think moving forward, a lot of these organizations are going to start to realize it isn't taking blockchain and trying to readjust what they do now. It is actually creating new products that are built on blockchain, right? Taking existing models that they've done, adjusting it to fit into a more decentralized world, and then building it on blockchain. And rather than calling it the same product name, XYZ checking account or XYZ savings account, they've got to be calling it something different. You've got to give the user, the customer, that notion that not only is it a new name, new branding, but fundamentally, it was designed differently. It is not you, the bank, that determines the interest rate. It is not somebody hiding in the room within the central bank that says, oh, I think it should be 2.5% for the next 2 years. No, it's determined by the community. How can that happen in an existing environment that we live in today? That is hard. But I am seeing now some of the more forward-thinking institutions that are saying, you know what, we got to cut that, right? We got to run our business, but we also got to build our business. And building has to be on something new. And building needs to have a new mentality. And that mentality isn't technology per se. Technology helps. But I've always tell people, technology is such an enabler. It's the business model that make or break something. So without that, without the two layers working on top of each other, it ain't going to work. So I'm telling you, going back to the earlier question on BSN, BSN is not an infrastructure play. It is not, right? You think about what China's been doing with, Belt and Road, building all the railways and all that. That's just the hardware. That's just laying the foundation. Without the railway, trade cannot happen, right? Without the hospitals, towns cannot be created. That's all done now. So now they say, okay, well, then what about transactions? How do we facilitate that? Maybe we can create something using blockchain. Okay, there's another layer. And then the next thing is going to be, well, all these countries, including us, China, are going to be creating digital currencies. How does that interact with each other on this layer? So it's a layered approach, right? So, sorry, long-winded answer to your question. The institutions have gone through that phase, and some of the ones are still stuck in that phase. But I am seeing now some of the ones that are saying, oh, there's this whole world is something that we can continue to leverage. And we have the expertise to do it, but we cannot stuck using the same method, which is to take it and try to jam it in here. That's not going to really work.
That was really good. Thank you very much.
Sorry, probably much longer than you expected. My apologies.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing the transcript of that one. We'll publish it as a essay. But gems in there nevertheless. I think we probably have time for 2 more questions. I'm conscious I want to kind of finish on inside the hour. Go on, Eduardo. Go for it.
Hello, I'm Eduardo. I work at on the QVote project, which is basically a quadratic voting platform being built on Algorand. And I'm a second-year computer science student at King's College in London.
Great to meet you.
My question is regards to blockchain kinds of applications. Is there something that is your favorite, and is there something that you think is distinctively more important to pursue? And if in blockchain in general and for Algorand specifically, are you pursuing something more than others with regards to, is it, for example, DeFi or, I don't know, public governance or some other industry? Or is it more about building the infrastructure and seeing where these things kind of develop themselves without putting too much emphasis on any one of them?
Thank you for your question. That's also a very good one. You guys are, Anthony told me you guys are very bright, and you are very bright. I cannot imagine what I was like when I was your age. So really, really good question. What do I see in terms of the projects building on Algorand, and do we have any particular focus? No, we don't have any particular focus, to be honest, right? We want to see what the potential can bring, whether it is the rapidly growing, sometimes hard to follow DeFi, space that's really exploded the last few months, or more kind of the traditional space where you're looking at more asset management, token issuance, or you're looking at, in many cases, public good, social good projects. I think we like all of them. We like the variety. We like the diversity. But more importantly, we like to see synergy between projects that can be brought onto each other, right? You're all building on Algorand. There are things that you're bringing onto the chain that not only benefit, obviously, what you're doing in terms of your business or the projects that you're working on, but we very much like to see these synergy that are being created from one partner to the next. And I think that synergy is what I would focus on, what I ask my team to focus on. Those of you that have gone to our site, by the way, we're refreshing the site, gotta make it a very different image. So that should be coming out in a month's time. But we have, not only do we have the accelerator program, we also have an ongoing grant program. And the grant program is for the community to submit proposals, projects that they built on, either it's an existing projects or new projects. And they've got a specific purpose, a specific mission, and economic value that they can generate on top of the chain. They bring in the proposals, we look at them, and we're going to also continue to move into a very community-driven process on that as well, to be able to bring these exciting projects onto Algorand. So the way we look at it is, if it brings economic value, activity on the chain, obviously we are blockchain, so we need activities, and these are real transactions that you're generating for a particular type of asset that can either work on the in the conventional world or in the crypto world, and then at the same time, does it actually generate synergy with other projects that's already on the chain? That's kind of the thinking process that we have, but we don't really lean towards one or the other, because quite frankly, the space moves very quickly. If we lean too far into one side, the market may move before you react. So we choose to be very open, and our advantage is that we continue to innovate. We continue to have more developers like you building on Algorand, and continue to see exciting things. So to us, we're going to continue down that path, and wherever these projects are coming from, and wherever geographically these projects are coming from, there's no restriction on our side. We welcome innovation from all corners around the world.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So I think we have time for one more question. So Lalith, yeah, go for it.
Thank you, Anthony. Hi, Sean. I'm
Hi.
Lalit from Hyderabad. I'm Lalit from Hyderabad, India. I'm an undergraduate student. Majoring in computer science. So our project is about verifiable academic credentials with decentralized identifiers stored on the Algorand blockchain. So my question is, thank you. My question is, if you'd like to share, we would love to know more about Algorand's vision for enabling borderless economy, and also what to expect in the short term.
Okay, very good question. Okay, so borderless economy, that is a very marketing tagline. So, you know, don't pay specifically attention to it in terms of exactly what does it mean, borderless. You know, we work on CBDC projects. A lot of those tend not to be so borderless, right? That's the whole notion of it. So that's purely a kind of our marketing, you know, message. But the economy aspect is important. I think I touched upon that earlier. The economy, creating real economic activity on the chain, is something that we focus on. So the economy aspect is important. Now, what can you expect out of Algorand in the short run? At least from the foundation perspective, let me speak on behalf of the foundation. We are continuing to work on new improvements on the technology itself, both from a research and development perspective. We work very closely with our sister company, Algorand Inc., which that's where the founder Sylvia McCallie sits, and they're continuing to create more innovations around layer 1, but also starting to look into layer 2 capabilities as well. So there's quite a bit happening on that side. On the foundation side, though, part of our mandate is to continue to build our ecosystem, work on more community projects, and more importantly, work on more community-driven projects. So you're going to see more programs that are going to be rolled out in the coming months that will touch on a variety of different topics and kind of program mandates as well, where we want to be looking at these projects and programs where we, the foundation, are going to be taking more of a backseat. We will help facilitate, we will coordinate, but we really want to let the community start driving these programs. Decision-making aspect of it, the innovation aspect of it, and also the management aspect of it as well. So you're going to be seeing quite a few of those coming up. In our latest transparency report that we just released earlier this week, we gave a little bit about that in the document. So I would say, you know, again, to summarize, ecosystem development is very important to us, building out the community, finding interesting projects from the community to build on Algorand, working with teams like the Encode Club and others, so we can have more folks to join into the to the project, and then at the same time furthering our decentralization mission via these various programs that we're going to be announcing in the coming months. So hopefully that answers your question. There's some details I will be sharing in the coming months, but at the highest level, that's what we're working on at the foundation.
Awesome. Well, I think that's neat. Thank you, Lalith, for the question. I think it's a neat time to kind of bring this to a close. Sean, I want to say a huge thank you to you for your time, because that is an extremely valuable commodity, but also more importantly your insights and careful answering of all the questions from the clubbers and those that have put them onto chat as well. We really appreciate it, and having individuals like yourself come in to do the AMAs is invaluable. So thank you very much. And yeah, I'd speak on behalf of everyone when I say we're all very, very grateful for your time.
Well, thank you, all of you, for the wonderful questions. They certainly tested my mind a bit, so I had to think on the spot, you know, what I was talking about earlier. But you know, very excited to meet all of you, especially those of you that are part of the Algorand Club. I look forward to the projects that you're building, and then also any continuing efforts and support that we can offer on the foundation side. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. And just to kind of wrap up from my side, so guys, we obviously have had two kind of split audiences here. One was obviously the Algorand Encode Club audience for the accelerator we're doing with you guys. but also we have kind of general audience who are just interested in Algorand and things we're doing in Encode, and we'll have many, many more programs and accelerators and hackathons coming up over the next few months that we look forward to you being involved in and supporting all of you guys further, both from the Encode side and the Algorand side. Okay, guys, thank you very much. If you have any other questions, ping me on the Discord or on email, and we'll upload the footage of this and a kind of abridged transcript later this week. So thank you very much, guys, and have a great day wherever you are.